All right, we are coming to you here with a special edition of the Soda Pod. We know everyone out there is excited about the Frozen Four coming up here this week, and of course, having the Minnesota representation. But on top of that, Tampa Bay is a pretty fun place to go out and watch hockey games. And I know some people that might be going out there either don't know the lay of the land or just haven't even been there before. Brought in a special guest here, Joe Smith of The Athletic, who weirdly is going there to cover the Gophers, has formerly worked for a long time in the Tampa market, and of course might even end up on the other side of the matchup in the championship game with his history going to Michigan. Just thank you for taking the time, Joe.
Oh, no problem. It should be a really fun week. We planned it out in advance that the Gophers made it, that I'd go and spend the week there. So I booked it just in case I could always cancel it. And it just worked out that they ended up winning. So didn't realize how many blue blood programs to be there between Boston and Michigan and Minnesota. And, some good storylines too with Quinnipiac. But excited to go down there, see some Gopher fans, meet some Gopher fans, and give people kind of an inside behind the scenes look at what the Gophers go through in their Frozen Four experience. And obviously guys like Brock Faber could be his last collegiate game.
That's right. And I know I told you last week when we talked, I wanted so badly to pre-buy tickets and stuff and just have them all be refundable. I'm way too superstitious for that. The second I pay for it and start planning it, they would have lost. So
yeah,
we made it now.
Yeah, I did a Southwest just in case, and then the hotels can be canceled. But yeah, it's going to be a fun time. I think any fan who comes down from Minnesota is going to love the weather, the people there, and the pregame scene. So a lot of stuff to do if you're not, even if you don't have tickets and want to catch the tailgating scene and watch it elsewhere around the arena.
For sure. And I mean, before we get into just what it's like to be in Tampa as a hockey fan, anything you want to touch on? I mean, you already kind of laid it out. We've got our Frozen Four matchups. We kick it off with Minnesota against BU, which I'm sure there's no shortage of miracle references that people have loaded up. We've then got Quinnipiac against Michigan. I mean, anything in particular, any storylines that you're most interested in, or anything you want to discuss on any of the teams individually?
Yeah, well, I'll start with Minnesota, right? I mean, coming off last year's loss, a chance to come in with some of the guys decided they wanted to come back, partly for the purpose of giving another run at a national championship. And so you have guys like Brock Faber, wild top prospect, who will be playing his last collegiate game either on Thursday or Saturday, whether he's hoisting the trophy and then going to join the Wild in Chicago, or he loses on Thursday. We don't know. And Matt and Nyes with the Maple Leafs fans are all waiting to hear if this is indeed his last couple collegiate games. They can join them before the playoffs. So those are some storylines, I think, for Minnesota. Been the stacked team all year, a favorite for most of the season, see if they can kind of come through. Michigan, has Fantilli. He'll be probably the number 2 overall pick in this year's draft behind Connor Bedard, but somewhat lucky team's going to get him if they lose the lottery, so to speak. And they're just a team that's been looking for their first national title in a long time. I know I covered Michigan hockey when I was at school there. I got there in 1999. So they had won 2 national championships in 3 years before I got there. So I covered many Frozen Fours in that time, including when Minnesota was there. So Michigan obviously is chasing some history there. Quinnipiac, sorry, I can't even really pronounce it sometimes, but they have Rod Brindamore's son, Skylar, playing for them. And so I think I was texting with Brindamore the other day, and he'll be cheering from afar because they play on Thursday and on Saturday, though. I like to think on Saturday, their 12 p.m. game in Buffalo, you can get a private jet maybe to come down in for the night game on Saturday if they do make it to the championship game. So I think a lot of storylines in all facets of NHL prospects in each team. And I know there'll be some fans who buy tickets for both games and are disappointed that their team loses on Thursday, but they can just party in Tampa for a weekend, make it a vacation out of it.
Hey, it's not a bad place to be. It's just a bad time maybe to be with spring break and everything going on. Prices are a little different, but you mentioned the possibility there with, of course, we already kind of know that Faber's done after this year. People are waiting on pins and needles to see what Nyes does. And then Cooley has long been speculated by Craig Morgan down in Arizona to basically be a lock to leave. And of course, fans not sure how they feel about that. And I don't know if you saw it, but after the Fargo Regional, they interviewed some of the players, interviewed Motzko, and he talked a little bit about a mistake that Cooley had made. and just went on to say, I mean, the beauty is, right, this guy's learning, he's getting better and better, and he's only going to do that much better next year for us. And like everyone's reading into that. They're like, oh my God, he's coming back. It's done.
Yeah.
Pretty sure that's just how Motzko talks about all the players, but I don't know. That'll be an interesting one to pay attention to as well, win or lose. I don't know if that impacts the decision he makes.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I think, I mean, Faber's definitely gone. And there's probably questions with Nyes. I think people assume Nyes is leaving, and Cooley, I think, might be coming back for the next year. But you know, when a player does win a championship and accomplishes the dream, that does give them a little more of a incentive to say, hey, I did everything I could do in college. Might as well test my talents at the next level. And I know it is a very big motivator for on the other spectrum. If they don't come so close, losing a title game, to come back with your teammates who you have that close bond for, you'll never have that college experience ever again. So, yeah, that'll be one of the bigger storylines. I think. I'm sure it'll be tough for these guys to have their heads in many different directions, from their families in town to the fellow students, and want to keep them happy, and also knowing in the back of your mind, your dream was, come to fruition. Another your NHL dream could be there 2 days later.
Why'd you play college hockey, Coxie?
Yeah. A lot of Minnesota, Boston players here. Yeah.
It's so perfect. But no, awesome. So let's jump in then and talk a little bit more about, hey, anyone that's making the trip, going to watch the Frozen Four in Tampa, regardless of who you're cheering for. Talk to me a little bit about what separates the pregame festivities around Amalie Arena compared to some of the other NHL markets.
Well, it starts for me because with the weather and the setup they have, that they can have a lot of entertainment and action going on outside the arena. So there's like a thing called Thunder Alley, which is basically like a big setup outside the arena. They have a stage for Lightning games. At least they have like live bands playing. They have like a tiki bar. There's another Cigar City, I believe, bar there too, which is one of the best breweries in Tampa Bay, all on that plaza area. And then they usually play like the game on the big screen against the big parking garage there. And you have a lot of fans who don't go to the game will sit in their lawn chairs and just have drinks and kind of, almost a tailgate feel to it. So I think having that weather advantages as opposed to Minnesota allows them to have those bands pregame and some music. And I'm sure there'll be something similar this time. I imagine the bands will be getting involved, and they'll probably have some pregame, events, knowing what they do so well in Tampa is hosting major events like this and be in multiple Frozen Fours now in Tampa. So there's a lot of bars kind of, within walking distance as well. So it can be a full day of activity there before the game even starts, especially if it's the 8:30 opening face-off. So, yeah, I think overall the outdoor, the music, and having that kind of walkway area where fans from each school can kind of mingle together will be kind of make it unique.
Very cool. And talk to me about just like the whole food and bar scene in and around Amalie Arena then. I mean, we've seen what it is on West 7th. Any of the Gopher fans know what that is. Yeah. What's it the scene like in comparison?
Well, there's a riverfront there too, or waterfront, which is nice to walk along the park. So you have that kind of feel. In the Riverwalk, they call it. They have a bunch of restaurants and bars, which is a little bit of a walk, but it's not that it all connected to each other. Like Eulalie is one of my favorite restaurants. Outdoor seating. You can open container along the bridge there. So that's a pretty cool way to start early afternoon to walk your way up towards Channel Side area where the arena is. The typical hockey bar is called Hattricks. A lot of fans go there. Pre and post game. A lot of some former players and ESPN crew went there after the Cup Finals every game and stuff like that. And so you should run into some people there. Just typical great hockey bar, a lot of TVs and some relatively cheap beer and stuff. Yeoman's is another bar right across from similar to that area. Those don't have the water views, but they have pretty good TV and sports selection there if you wanted to pregame and watch the previous game before going to the night one. And if I were someone going to this event, there's a lot of really cool bars and restaurants that are right on the water where they have the Gasparilla Pirate Festival every year, and all the boats kind of climb through there, where the Lightning had their boat parade go through. So basically there's like a Sail Pavilion, small bar, a tiki bar, right when you leave the arena and go to your right, like 3 or 4 blocks, you run right into it, and then you go up that bridge across a little water there. And Jackson's is a restaurant with a view of the water. Some good sushi, overall good menu. And then American Socials right next to that. More of a casual vibe, but good drinks, and you're looking out at the water, which is nice, and that's where the Lightning players had kind of their yachts there for their Cup day. So right outside there, there's so many things around there. Armature Works is another short walk away with little bars and food trucks. So it's hard to go wrong, and those are just places that are just close to the arena. If you want to do like a trolley or Uber to South Tampa, some bars and restaurants there, including my favorite Italian spot, Bella's. Everyone's heard of Bern Steakhouse, which is like, I'm sure it'll be booked, all week there in South Tampa. But yeah, and go to Ybor, have a nice cigar, Ybor City, and putts around there in cobblestone streets. So there's plenty to do, and that's just talking about Tampa, not including where I lived for a long time, which is St. Pete, which is across the water.
Oh, baby. And we'll get into that too. But a couple of questions from that, and one's a quick hitter. But when you say the whole boardwalk there, like along the water, is open container, do you mean that I can get a 12-pack, keep it in my hotel room, and I can walk out there and drink my own beer there? Or is it just kind of open for the businesses down there?
It's usually the only time I've ever done is having it from the bar to bar or like that, or they have those things, even concerts or shows. Like I've never, done that where I've had just picked a, 12-pack and walked around. I'm sure there's so many people there. I'm not trying to get you to break the law or not, but I'm sure if you take a solo cup and move around. But yeah, I'm saying like where you go from Eulalie all the way up the Riverwalk. Usually it's an open container where if you go from bar to bar, you can kind of take the plastic cup and go around. But overall, that's a really good spot.
For legal reasons, Joe Smith does not condone illegal drinking of alcohol in public places. Got to ask then, because you actually talked to me about this last week. Can you tell everyone the story of why Hattricks is called Hattricks?
Well, it's the first game in Lightning history was played in the fairgrounds. Not even close to anything like they have there in Emily Arena now. It was just really kind of a humble start to the franchise. Phil Esposito had to give everything he had in his life to barter and get a franchise and the franchise fee. And so they started at pretty humble beginnings. I think the ice was barely 200 feet long, and they barely had enough 10,000 seats in that arena. And so first game, they were making sure to tell the ushers, like, hey, like, don't let anybody be unruly or throw things on the ice or whatever, kick them out. And so they didn't think about kind of the institutional hockey knowledge there, or the fact that on game one, Chris Conchos would score a hat trick, score 4 goals in the first game. And when a fan started to throw the hats on the ice like you do for hat tricks, one of the ushers tried to kick one of them out because throwing it on the ice. And so Phil Esposito had to personally get involved to keep them in the building and just kind of educate some of the fan base or his own workers there about hat tricks. So now it's kind of fitting that the main hockey bar is called Hattricks. I don't know if it's necessarily for that reason, but I think we've all kind of assumed that or kind of attached to that part of Lightning history. Now they're 30 years later, 3 Stanley Cups and in the golden age of Lightning hockey. So it's kind of silly to think about that now because such an astute hockey market now.
Love it. And is there anything, I know it's probably just a typical sports bar, right, with the hockey vibe. Is there anything though from someone that's been there in the past, like, is there a must order? Is there like, whether it's food or like special drinks or anything you'd recommend at Hattricks?
They have pretty good bar food, like usual, like wings and stuff, like there's nothing that's like world famous as most bars will tout something, but I just love getting like Coors Light or Captain and Diet and enjoy myself. A lot of pictures and stuff on the wall and a little bit of history there. And it's a pretty short walk from the arena district. So yeah, I think overall just the history of knowing guys like Marty St. Louis and those guys have been there a lot before. And, the staff is really good. So that's just one of them, but a lot of really good places around there that I'm sure will take all the Gopher fans business next week.
Well, and that's the key question that I know everyone's going to need following up. Whenever I go out for a game at the X, the plan is, hey, we're meeting at Tom Reed's, but when it's probably too full, where do we go from there? Like, what's the backup move? So if someone walks up to Hattricks and they're like, oh my gosh, there's no way I'm getting in here, what's like a close place that you would say is your backup?
I would say Yeoman's is the one that's relatively close. That's kind of a really good, newer sports bar. They have good food and they have an outside balcony. pretty decent size. When I had one of my athletic meetups with fans and subscribers, we had a pretty good rooms reserved there a few years back. So that's a good spot. And then the hub is like a kind of a sticky floor dive bar, cash only. But they have like that's another spot a little bit down the path that if you wanted to just get ready for the pregame action, that's another one that's a little further away from the arena, but a good walk won't hurt you, especially all those calories you'll be consuming.
That is a very fair point.
And if people have off day on Friday, I think it's a good idea to take the ferry over. There's a ferry that leaves from the convention center and goes to St. Petersburg, which is the place, kind of like Minneapolis and St. Paul. But this really cool, vibrant city with a lot of really good breweries, and there's a waterfront there that has a pier, the rooftop restaurant and bar, and then Beach Drive has a bunch of different restaurants and bars to go to. So that's definitely a go-to thing on the off day, or if your team is out and have a weekend to kill.
Well, and I mean, that's perfect transition. Then let's talk about how people should spend their off day. You just gave us a great example. And I know you being from St. Petersburg and spent a lot of time there. Do you have any like go-to locales that you would direct people to? Like, is there a best rooftop? Is there a best brewery in the eyes of Joe Smith?
Yeah, and I would start by walking the pier. It's beautiful and a lot of places to run or bike or bring kids. They usually have bands playing, and there's like a little cafe area in the middle. And Teak, it's a rooftop on top of the pier bar there. You can get the view of the whole entire city, which is pretty nice. Overall, like the best rooftop beer happy hour, I think, is Canopy. Underneath is Birch and Vine, a really good restaurant. So that's a good spot there. If you like, trying to think, as far as breweries goes that are like walkable in downtown, if you take the ferry over and walk, St. Pete Brewing is a cool a place up there in First Avenue. Green Bench Brewing is one of the more popular ones. A great outdoor spot with grass and people bring their dogs and kids, and it's a pretty cool vibe and really good IPAs, which I like. And everywhere there's there's Ubers or wherever like that to get around, and there's also a Sunrunner, like a little bit of a bus thing that can take you right from downtown to the beach. So for no fee, it's free right now. So if you end up going to St. Pete or take Uber there, Sunrunner, look it up, and you can take it all the way to St. Pete Beach. So that's another option if you want to expand your horizons outside of Tampa on those off days.
Yeah, I can definitely speak to St. Pete's Beach. Awesome place to go. And I never really hit the St. Petersburg in the middle, but when we were out there for a trip, we ended up happening across tickets and just taxied right through and got to the game. But anything then outside of St. Petersburg, because obviously we talk hockey, but we talk a lot of beer on here. Like, what are some of the best breweries that you'd recommend, whether it's from the beer perspective or if it's just like, wow, this tap room, this vibe is just way different. Like, whether we're talking north of the rink, whether we're talking out in St. Petersburg, like what are the ones that stand out that are just different?
Well, my favorite beer in Tampa Bay is Cigar City Highlight. And Cigar City is one of the signature breweries in Tampa Bay. Coppertail is another good one if you're in Tampa area. And like I said, a lot of the breweries in St. Pete that I frequent have a lot of like outdoor games type stuff. Like Three Daughters is a huge like kind of cavernous like warehouse. They have darts and any kind of bar games you can think of, and outside cornhole, and like usually have bands playing most Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights. So that's a really cool vibe. But yeah, you can't barely even walk a few blocks without running into another one. It's just kind of grown so much in that respect. And if you're in Tampa, you could take either take a trolley or you could take a quick Uber to Ybor City, which is kind of like a historic town. Good cigars, some good food. Usually have a comedy club there. So that's another like an off day thing. If you wanted to stick around, not go on the ferry or take a long Uber over to St. Pete, that's another one that's a little bit quicker, and you can kind of get another feel for Tampa Bay and it's kind of its history there.
Very cool. And I feel like looking around there's several locations for Cigar City. Do you have to go to their like main tap room or where they brew the beer, or is there a best like place to experience Cigar City?
I think they have like a main branch, but they even have a Cigar City lounge, I think, right in Thunder Alley by the arena, I believe. They do a lot of so that's like you can still get the same beers from there, and you're outside, you're in the middle of the action there with the games and like the crowd and stuff. So I don't think you necessarily have to go there to do like a brewery tour. I think you can just enjoy whatever kind of beer you like from that spot. But I'm more of kind of used to like the St. Pete scene, but the Tampa ones I know of are the ones that I mentioned before. And there's a couple more in Ybor too, if you kind of stumble that way.
Very cool. And you already hit on, I mean, you gave us a great Italian place. You gave us a steak place that people probably can't get into. Great sushi place. Any other food places, whether it's like, hey, this is a restaurant that I'm going to have to make a reservation for, or, hey, here's a hole in the wall that's like a staple that's a great lunch spot. Like what's a hidden gem that maybe people wouldn't think of coming to Tampa?
Well, I really enjoy like Miguel's a good Mexican spot. So it might not be like a walk, would be a short Uber there, but that's another one that's a cool venue and just not that expensive and pretty good overall food. As far as close to the rink, they have two of these kind of locations. Like one in Ybor City is called Columbia, and they have one right across the street from the arena, and it's kind of they have an outdoor patio, and it's really good, like Cuban sandwiches, like salads, and all that kind of stuff like that. So that's a good spot that's really close. That not a hole in the wall, but maybe not different from kind of the scene, so to speak, of the Jacksons, American Socials, and right along the water. I'll probably forget a number of ones that I've been to before, but yeah, that's a good and there's obviously pizza places everywhere, so it's not like there's one that's like the go-to spot, but there's a lot of pizza places that you can kind of walk up on the street and grab a slice and go. Very
cool. And don't worry, I can be your conduit for the week. If you come up with like, oh man, I forgot this one, just text me and I'll throw it out to the world. But on that, yeah, you did say that at least for a drink, we're going to meet up on one of the off days. What's the spot you're picking? Where are we going to go?
I think I would probably say I'd probably go to Sail Pavilion there, because it's an easy walk from downtown to the rink. Usually it's beautiful weather, so you can sit outside in a chair and kind of stare out into the water there and everything. So I think that would be, get a bucket of like Coors Light or Bud Light and just, sit at a table and hang out. So that'd be a good spot for me. If American Social is not too busy there too, because that's just an easy walk across the bridge. Very cool. Love it.
Last piece then, as far as just, again, the outsider's guide to enjoying the Frozen Four. Inside Amalie Arena, anything that you want to tell the people? I mean, first and foremost, are there like go-to food or beverage options within the arena?
It's a good question. I don't usually like eat the arena food when I'm there, but there are like they have what you expect. They have pizza. They have like PDQ, which is like chicken and stuff like that. They have a Bud Light party deck, which you can go kind of pre and post game, and so it kind of looks like it's a rooftop thing. It overlooks kind of the Thunder Alley in the city. So I think they have like discounts like post game from like end of the third period. So it's usually a good place to wait out the traffic and crowd in that respect. But it's really a walkable concourse there around if you want to just kind of take a beer and go stand by the organist, which is kind of in kind of one of the middle sections, and just watch it from that railing. It's pretty cool. So I think overall, I think there's a cigar bar there. I know Russo did a story from there last year in the Cup final, so he has more experience there than I do. Quite frankly, I can't remember if you have to be a member or not, but there's a cigar bar there in the arena. So overall, it's just really good vantage points from most any seat you have there, easy walkable in and out. So, but I think the Bud Light party deck is a cool one because you can just kind of go there pre and post game, grab a Bud Light, and then wait for it to start.
Very cool. Yeah, I really hope that it's not a member only thing for the cigar lounge, because I'm not a big cigar guy, but I certainly enjoy like a good cigar with a good whiskey. And I can't imagine there'd be that many members around, right? Like they gotta try and capitalize on that tourist revenue.
If not try Ybor City, and you take an Uber there, you can find plenty of places you can, member or no member, grab a cigar, sit on the side of the street there, and then sip your bourbon, have your cigar, and call it an afternoon.
I mean, that sounds like a great afternoon. Anything else that stands out? Like, I mean, I don't know if I even have anything particular, but anything that fans wouldn't know when they walk into Amalie Arena that you'd want to point out?
Hmm. I don't think so. They cover pretty much most of it. It's obviously a gigantic scoreboard, so you can't miss it. That'll be definitely a view from anywhere you sit. But oh yeah, I think overall it's going to be a great experience. The crowd there for the Frozen Fours has been excellent, electric, and so they've done this before. They know how to host, and there's a reason why NCAA goes back there multiple times, especially in a Sun Belt city. So I think people are really going to enjoy kind of the fan experience that they have.
Awesome. Love it. Well, really appreciate it again, Joe. Obviously, you know Tampa way better than any of us. Everyone, obviously, if you don't already, follow Joe Smith on Twitter. Make sure you're getting the updates, not only while we're in Tampa, if he has any places that pop up, but obviously the episode, the article drops that keep on coming with this awesome new tandem that we have of Joe and Russo. Do you have a minute here, Joe? Do you want to touch on any of your recent articles? Or I know we got the Avalanche game coming up here. Do we got to cut it?
Yeah, I got a couple minutes here. I can give you a little teaser here. I think people saw today, Mike and I did a kind of collaboration on what the lineup will look like when they're fully healthy, which is kind of a big question considering when Kaprizov comes back and Nyquist is skating and practicing. We did kind of a prediction of what the lines and D pairs will look like in goaltending, which will be maybe the biggest decision. Overall, Gustafsson starting tonight against Colorado. So that was one. I did a collaboration with some of the writers on our staff for our big Fight Week series and kind of the evolution of fighting in the NHL and where it's going from here. A lot of wild voices in there, from Bill Guerin to Dean Evison, who fought Dale Hunter 3 times in one game when he was a player. Marcus Foligno, Ryan Reeves, so was Ryan Carter. A lot of good voices in there. People, Wild White fans want to read about that kind of history of fighting. With a couple of fun ones coming up, including one on Matt Boldy coming on Friday, and then a couple other fun ones next week to set up the Frozen Four and the Wild home stretch. But it's been a fun one with me and Mike, and we're just getting ready for the playoffs and trying to get the best coverage we can.
Yeah, that Matt Boldy kid, he's been okay lately. Any little snippet or teaser you can give anyone on the juggling of how lines might shake out when fully healthy? Is there one that either you and Russo kind of butted heads on, or one that as you looked into it, you're like, I didn't think I'd land here, but I did?
I think one was kind of a back and forth. We thinking that Goligoski might stick in the lineup with Klingberg on that third pair. Merrill's been that guy all year, and so that's kind of one of the harder scratches we were talking about in that third pair. Addison's obviously been odd man out mostly, but we're with the way Goligoski's playing forward tonight. They've liked him the last 20 some games. So I think he could be at the odd man in with Klingberg, and the other one is the fourth line. You have 6 guys in 4 spots. Do you sit Sundquist? Ryan Reeves clearly has a spot if he's healthy, right? Because it'd be hard for me to sit Mason Shaw, but you have Duhaime there. It's just, if Nyquist gets back, there's just once one extra top 9 spot you lose from what you have here. And so, as Dean Evison said, a lot of tough answers they have to come up with, but there's also a good problem to have when you have more good players than you need, because in the playoffs, I've covered many of them. They're rarely the guys that start the playoffs in the starting lineup end up finishing just with injuries, and so you need an extra defense pair, an extra line just in case. So that definitely helps that they're built for that way, considering the Western Conference and how heavy those teams are.
I was going to say, you've got unique experience covering beyond the first round, so that's certainly good insight to have.
Mm-hmm.
And just say something nice, ease my pain. 11-7 tonight, right? No Calen Addison still. Just lay it on me. Say something nice, or just put me out of my misery with a killing statement, if that's what it's got to be.
Well, they could play Matt Boldy double shifts, so that'll help you. Matt Zuccarello could play a little more. Listen, that's not an ideal lineup. If Duhaime wasn't sick or Reeves wasn't hurt, ideally you'd be full strength against Colorado. But I don't think the fact that Calen Addison isn't playing the extra forward spot is going to cost them the game. I know the power play has been off and on, but that was the one decision I think could have been back and forth question. But it's not ideal. But I think that's what they have right now, and the way they've been playing, they've been able to find a way. So I wouldn't jump off the bridge of the river there quite yet.
No, and for me, it's more so is the writing on the wall? Is there any future for Calen Addison here, do you think?
I mean, I think it'd be a little foolish about him this soon. I think you have to see how the summer breaks out. If Dumba's actually gone, which he probably will be, and you're not going to sign Klingberg, you need somebody to play the right side. And Faber's going to be one of those guys, but clearly there have been things behind the scenes that they've been trying to work with him as a coaching staff, and you saw some glimpses of it. The St. Louis game where he got into the lineup right before the game started, played really well. He's say the right things behind the scenes and working on stuff. So I don't know, when you're a player that young that has that kind of skill set, as long as they're not an issue of being coachable or an attitude problem, I think you have to give a little more time with it. But obviously, some of the decisions have kind of been a little more telling than others this year with regards to him.
There, see, look at that. You made me feel a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
And last question then, just as we look at it, like the Wild could match up with any team at this point come playoff time. If we could end up the 1 seed in the Central, we could be a wild card. Means we could play anyone in the Pacific, anyone in the Central. Give me like a team or two that you either really do or really don't want to face.
Well, like they say in Tampa, you have to beat them all at some point, right? But I think overall, like Jared Bednar said today, like they don't want to play the Wild the first round without how they are. And I think if the Wild had some truth serum, I think the Wild would want to play Colorado the first round. They'll maybe play them anyways, but I think everybody's going for that first place in the division, knowing it'll give them quote unquote easier matchup for round one. Who knows? Nashville might be that 8th seed, or the Flames. The Winnipeg is kind of falling off the face of the earth here. So I think if you're the Wild, maybe rather play a team like the Seattles or the Calgarys, Winnipegs, or whatever, versus matching up with Colorado. But I think the next couple games here with the Wild facing Avalanche and then Vegas on Saturday, and then the Avs facing the Wild and then playing Dallas on Saturday will go a long way here in seeing where their standings are.
And as a writer, can you just admit that you very much want to see it be the LA Kings because there's just oodles of stories to be written there?
Oh, there's stories to be written everywhere, man. But I'd personally, in a travel perspective, rather go to Nashville or Seattle or whatever. But yeah, we'll see Kevin Fiala again soon. And I think I've written enough Kevin Fiala stories this year where the comments have gone too crazy for me. So if they play him, they play him. If they don't, they don't.
Yes, the Kevin Fiala and just the hatred of Drew Doughty. It'll never go away. Oh, man. Well, again, really appreciate the time here, Joe. Love to get you back on here for a preview once the playoffs actually do turn around and we actually see who is healthy and who the matchup is. But obviously, enjoy the game tonight, and we'll see you in Tampa.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me. And if any fan wants to hit me up on Twitter at Joe Smith NHL, any tips or suggestions, or just if you see me in Tampa, say hello. We'll catch up. Maybe we'll grab a beer sometime. So thanks so much, guys, for following and for reading. And that $1 a month sale is still going on until Friday. If anybody wants to hit up any one of our links to our stories, it'll give you a really good deal that's ending here in the end of the week.
Love it. Awesome. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.